Cool, recording should be going now. So thank you everyone who joined tonight for the Zoom meeting. I wish we were in person, but hopefully next meeting will be in person. That's the current plan. The university is lifting some of the restrictions on that. So excited to see you all in person again. But the nice thing about Zoom is we can have so many different people from all around the country join our meeting tonight. So I'm super excited about everyone we have with us. Before we get started, just a couple announcements. Our next field trip will be not this weekend, but the next weekend. I sent it out in the group meeting, or I think in the club email, but we're gonna be going for ducks. Right now the plan's looking at Hoover, but we're gonna look at eBird reports, see where stuff's being seen, is Allen better, that sort of thing. As the time gets closer, I'll send out more information about the time, cars, all that next week as it gets a little closer. But other than that, you guys should have seen the semester schedule has been out in the email. I sent in the group me, but I can send it out again if anyone wants to see it again. It should be in the email each week going forward, but February is pretty chill because March and April is really going to ramp up. I'm really excited about what we have going on then. So a lot of busy stuff going on. One of the big things of March is spring break. We're finalizing details right now for Rio Grande Valley in Texas. So we're gonna send out information about that soon. We're putting together just like some slides to either send out to you guys, or I'll send out a video of me talking over it instead of having a meeting where we try and do that. I know not everyone can make it to every meeting. So that way you can look at the information on your own time. People can ask any questions, and then we'll send out, make sure everyone knows about a specific time where we'll start signups. So I'll have like price, all that sort of thing coming up soon, but that's just something to keep an eye out for. Can't think of any other announcements right now. Woodlot competition still going on. I think Brennan's still in the lead right now, but only one species, so not for much longer. But yeah, I think that's it right now, unless let's see, I don't think Amy's here yet, or if Molly, if you'll have anything else that you can think of.
No, I think that's good.
Okay, cool. So
I'm here and I don't have anything either other than hi.
Hi, okay, hi. But yeah, I think that's it. So I'll go ahead and get the meeting started. I'm super excited about everyone here tonight. I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves, but it's a fantastic group of people, all current club members or club alumni who have just had fantastic experiences, and I can get their information from them afterwards to send out to you guys if they're fine with that for any more questions beyond this. But they're just awesome people to reach out to about so much advice about everything. So I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves, and then I have a few questions that I'll just get them talking and going with while you guys think of some stuff. And I just really want to turn it over to everyone that you guys can ask any questions you have and just use these resources. So first of all, you guys want to just introduce yourself, say like name, what was your major in undergrad, what experience you have now, the reason why you're here tonight, your career stuff. And then I think that's a good starting point. What years you were at OSU and that sort of thing. So if we want to start with our current club member, Brian, if you want to go first.
Sure, no pressure. Hi, everyone. Those of you who haven't met, my name is Brian. I'm currently a master's student here at Ohio State. I work with Dr. Chris Tanra. I study a bird called the prothonotary warbler and sort of their migratory ecology. But my background in undergrad was more in evolutionary and biology and biogeography. I did some work at the Field Museum in Chicago for a while, and I did some field jobs out west working with raptors and songbirds in Oregon. So that's kind of my background and where I'm coming from, but now I do more of this applied ecology and conservation stuff here with Chris. So it's nice to meet you all. Yeah.
Sweet. And then I don't know any particular order, just you guys are on my screen. Steph, if you want to go next. Or...
Yeah, I can go. So I now go to U of A's vet school, and one way the ornithology club helped me is I'm now VP of our avian club at U of A. So
I think Caitlin, you're next on my screen.
All right, I'm Caitlin. I was in the ornithology club, I believe 2017 to 2019. I joined and I won a $20 bet because I outbirded my friend Andrew in Ohio Birds, and it kind of got the ball rolling. Now I am a wildlife educator at a nonprofit located on the North Shore of Long Island. And yeah, that's about me.
Awesome. And then Matt.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am Matt Bell. I was part of the ornithology club when I helped found it back in 2016 through when I graduated in 2018. I had 2 degrees, Earth Sciences and Evolution. And from there, I went and I now work at the Connecticut Audubon Society, a nonprofit here in Connecticut, where I work full-time as a travel specialist, AKA just a fancy way of saying a tour guide for bird watchers.
Awesome. And then Candace.
Hi, I'm Candace. I went to Ohio State. I graduated in May 2019 with a degree in forestry, fisheries, and wildlife. I joined the club because of Matt. He drugged me into birding after I took a summer class at Stone Lab, the avian ecology. It was just a 1-week course that got me into birding. And then Matt drugged me into the ornithology club, and that's really what got me hooked. I've been a wildlife biologist. I'm a traveling field ecologist. I've worked jobs the last 2.5 years from Wisconsin to South Carolina, New Mexico, Texas, Brazil, and now I'm in San Diego for the next 6 months.
Awesome. Thank you guys. So you guys can go in like whatever order you want, like for some interest stuff, just to get a little bit more going so people can think of some questions. If you guys want to first just talk about like what you did in undergrad that you felt like really prepared you for these positions and like helped you figure out what you wanted to go into with this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go first. When I helped start the club in 2016, I was looking for other people who loved birds, didn't care what type of birding, all of that, et cetera, et cetera. As the club got its feet under, it started with only 3 or 4 people. That initial meeting, I still think about what, four of us, yeah, from that official first meeting, still keep in touch regularly. But when I became president, and it took the step of planning and leading, designing trips, learning how to teach people, getting people on birds, all of that steps, the trips to Saxon, the trips to Texas, especially with Cassie's brother Tyler, really got the ball rolling as how I wanted to be a guide, because I found that there was no better feeling out there than showing people birds for the first time and making those memories and making those new friends. So that's what my time at Ohio State and in the club helped me really get that foot in the door. And when I applied at Connecticut Audubon, I was actually the only person out of the 40 who applied for the job who had ever had any guiding experience because of the club. And that really got my foot in the door. And my boss, after the initial interview, said, we really don't need to interview anyone else because you're the only one with the guiding experience and we want you. So the club really helped in that regard.
I could talk a little bit about, I know I'm a little bit different because I know not everyone is pre-vet and probably a lot less people are, but one experience that I really valued that I did both at Ohio State and kind of outside of Ohio State was specimen prep. And I think that helped me both like get involved in wildlife research, but also like anatomy for vet school. Like I kind of found that interest with that. So I think that that's something that you can definitely do in undergrad I know this is obviously the ornithology club, so they do have opportunities with bird prep, but you could also look into mammal prep too, if you're interested in that.
For me, when I went to Ohio State, my goal was to become a zookeeper. Like I was just gonna be in the background. I was gonna feed a lion, take a cute picture, call it a day. But now I'm so much more in the public eye, and that wasn't something I expected going to school. It wasn't something I got until I started volunteering with the organization I'm a part of. But when I joined the club, it really skyrocketed my love of birds, and it inspired me to take forestry classes and to take avian ecology with Dr. Tanra. And I absorbed so much information because I was just so obsessed with it. And when I went into my interview and I explained, oh yeah, I have a degree in zoology, I know what I'm talking about, they really appreciated that they had somebody who knew a lot of stuff about birds and about their adaptations and their ecology. And yeah, so the knowledge totally helped. Everything else is kind of a learning curve for me though.
I also went into Ohio State as kind of like I was an EOB major, thinking I was going into zookeeping or something of that sort. But meeting people in the ornithology club and helping with Chris Tonner and his research got me more interested in the hands-on wildlife field biology aspect rather than research or lab work, which I thought I originally wanted to do with EEOB. And just meeting people in the club, there was an older member who had done some field work, and that's what she told me about what she was doing. And I was like, oh, I think that's actually what I'm interested in, is population management and being hands-on in the field.
Yeah, I want to second a lot of what Candace said. I think like, finding those experiences you can do in college and then also after college to kind of figure out what you might like to do, what you might not like to do can be really, really helpful. I had a professor who posted like a job advertisement my senior year, and it happened to be like the first field job that I ever got. And it was like sort of a random fluke thing, but it sort of started me on this kind of academic pivot because in undergrad, I was also more evolutionary focused in my stuff. And now I do this ecology work with Chris, which is like, it kind of draws on some of the same skills and ideas, but also brings in a lot of new things. And so I think getting exposed to as many different kind of things out there as you can be really helpful.
Sweet, that's awesome. Thank you guys. I'd say the next question, just getting things going, is as people are starting to think about like similar career paths and that sort of thing, what's one thing you wish you had known like while you're in undergrad, like planning this out going forward, like knowing going into the career?
Well, first and foremost, when I was in school, I was a member of the marching band. I worked for the marching band, so most of my free time went to doing band things. So when I started like looking for jobs, I didn't have enough like hands-on experience with animals. So I would say definitely like get your foot in the door, try to volunteer with an organization, get some field tech positions if you can. But yeah, definitely like, I'm not going to say I wasted my time, but I was definitely at a further starting point from everybody else when I graduated.
I think along those lines too, one thing that, I can't really think of like what I would have liked to know, but I do think one thing that really helped me was like, I had really great mentors who like knew what was out there and could like say like, here's kind of the opposite things you could think about. And like, they kind of have already been through it. And it's like, they pass on what they wish they would have known to you, but they like give you time to kind of act on it. And that can be really, really helpful for figuring out what's out there and what you want to do and how to get there.
I think one piece of advice that I have is to keep your options open. I know like a couple of us were saying like, yeah, we went in thinking we'll probably be doing something like zookeeping. And that's kind of how I came in. And I think that it's important to realize like research, field biology, like all of these are options. And I guess my one piece of advice would be to explore all of those before you kind of settle on one.
Yeah, and following up on like Steph said, you don't have to worry about fitting into what like your major expects you to be. Like I went in fully intending to be a paleontologist. I really at times wish I could do it still, but that old adage, it's repeated time and time again, especially to college kids. But when they say you find a job that you love, you never feel like, you never work a day in your life if it's a job you love. That's 100% true. Like when I was looking for jobs, trying to leave Ohio State, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I mean, conservation, yes. Research, maybe. But looking back on it now, it's like that love of guiding I fell into as part of the club. I lead trips now. Every day I come home from work, I'm still planning trips because to me it's fun. I never feel like I'm working. And I think that's the most important thing I took out is that if you enjoy it, then follow it. Don't feel like you have to stick fully to what that major is or what the impression of that major is trying to force you into.
Yeah, I think one thing I wish I knew was where to look for jobs and who to talk to about things like that. I know the first job I worked, someone in the club had told me they had worked for this professor as a field tech one summer, and she told me about it. So that was what I did my first summer because I didn't know where else to apply to. But now I know about all these conservation job boards like Texas A&M Wildlife Jobs and Ornithology Exchange where you can apply to stuff like that, or just to talk to professors and see what if their grad students are hiring field technicians or anything of that sort.
Sweet, yeah, thank you guys. And then now I'll just say, like, I have some other questions that if anyone doesn't have anything in mind, but does anyone here have any questions? Just shoot stuff out to all of them, anyone in particular about a specific like career path, anything?
I actually had a question about how some of you guys kind of reached out to these professors. This is my first semester at OSU. I'm a transfer from a D3 school, so all the professors really know your face when you come in, and like I'm having trouble making connections with these OSU professors. Like I've made a few, but it's really hard, kind of, at least in my opinion so far, to have them like remember who I am.
I'd honestly start by emailing people too. If you research what their lab research is before you email them and say, hey, I'm really interested in what your lab is doing. Can I help out in any way? Even if I just data mine or whatever it is, PCR, stuff like that, then at least you're getting into a lab and you're going to get to know the professor better that way. At least that's how I started with my research, is I literally just emailed him, and then eventually the relationship developed into more like beneficial for me, I guess.
And sometimes that can take a while too, where the professor won't respond to you. I remember reaching out to Chris Tondra my sophomore year, and he like emailed me back and then just didn't get back to me after that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that sucks. And then I met one of his grad students later who invited me out to his banding, and I went to banding because of his grad student. And then eventually he asked me to do research with him. But at first, you know, he just kind of ignored me. And that sucked, but it was nice to get to know his grad students. And then he ended up, you know, liking me, and I worked in his lab for a year or two. But yeah, just look into other professors too, I guess. Reach out to multiple, maybe.
I would say the secret to Chris Tonra was I wore a Mets cap the same day he wore a Mets cap, and he made a beeline to me and he was like, hey, let's talk, let's chat. Are you trying to get an A in my class? Are you trying to butter me up? So that's the secret to Chris Tonra, like the Mets.
Awesome. Thank you.
I can confirm the Mets thing.
The Mets thing, yep.
That's awesome. Anything else, anyone?
I feel like I need to represent the Tonra lab here somehow. I don't know, just, yeah, like we are looking for people to come out and help banding Aiden. So if you want to shoot me an email too, I can try and put you in more direct contact with Chris. That could, like Candace said, contacting the grad students can sometimes be more helpful. So we'll do our best.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I reached out to him before I transferred, and then he really ever got back to me.
Sounds about right.
Grad students too.
Yeah, as a third year in, working with Chris Tondra's lab, it definitely took me a couple years to get in the in-loop. So don't feel bad if he doesn't see you or doesn't get back to your first few emails a long time. Just forward them, send a nice little message along with, and be like, hey, I'm so excited, because consistency really does pay off.
And it's not personal, I promise.
Sweet. Any other questions about anything? I can ask you guys something else then. Help people like spark other ideas. So let's see. So what type of resources did you guys take advantage of like at OSU? Did you guys use, or undergrad, did you guys use like the career services offices at all? Did you just mostly use professors for networking? I know you guys kind of touched on some things a bit, but
no, I didn't really use any resources like that. The way I got my job now is because my boss at my old job was a volunteer and I volunteered with them. So I didn't get to network inside of OSU, but networking really does help. Like if it wasn't for my boss, I wouldn't have gotten my new job now, where I get to take animals out and bring them around Long Island and introduce kids to the ideas of conservation and ecology. So
yeah, I think the extent of my network was my best friend, because then he went and introduced me to his mentor, which then became my mentor, which then, yeah, that's, and I did nothing else in that regard. No career center. Don't use me as an inspiration at this part. I don't do what I did, basically, including that.
I didn't use any of that stuff either. Just networked within the ornithology club. A lot of the grad students in the SENR department, not just Chris Tonner's grad students, but the other ones too. Those are all good resources, just talking to them about jobs they had worked and how they ended up in grad school there and stuff like that. Never used any career services things.
At my undergrad, the career services people like didn't really have a good sense of like what, you know, like field jobs would do. It was like either you were like going to be a doctor, or you would be going right to grad school. And I think for a lot of people, neither of those is really their chosen option. So maybe here it's different, but I did not find that particularly helpful.
I was in ENR Scholars too, and so is Matt. I don't know if anyone else is in ENR Scholars or any groups like that, but those groups are helpful to just to talk to people about options and careers. I guess I used that as well.
Yeah, I know in my experience, just jumping in, I have used the career office at OSU a bit, especially the CFAES one for the food, ag, environmental science, and their interview prep, their people are phenomenal. Caitlin Conrad is one of the workers there, and she is an incredible resource. I've been meeting with her a ton, doing vet school interviews, mock interviews, all that. And she's so extremely helpful and flexible and just very excited. So I highly recommend using them if you haven't yet, for any interviews, job stuff. They're really great with that. And they're really great about doing the research. I know when I first started with her, I told her I was doing vet school interviews, and she went and she talked to the vet school and asked them, what sort of things are you looking for? How should I advise people? And then just gave me that direct feedback. So they are awesome working with you for that. And then I think kind of going with like advisement stuff, I think a lot of us when we're starting out in undergrad, that sort of thing, everyone's like, you better go get a job, start grad school, something right after school. And I think this is a field in particular that taking like a gap year or so, getting more experience can be really important. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? Maybe different from what you were told growing up or that sort of thing?
Candace, putting you on the spot.
Okay, sure, I'll start. Originally, when I graduated, I planned to do seasonal wildlife jobs, which is what I did. I went straight to work for Black Swan Bird Observatory in Northwest Ohio, and then I went to Wisconsin after that, and then Cape May. And my original idea was just to work for a year or two doing field jobs. And I was like, oh, I'll go to grad school in a year or two. I'm definitely gonna start a master's right away. But now that I've been doing it for 2.5 years, I still love traveling and still like working on all these field jobs and learning new things about each species and habitat I work with. So I think I'll still eventually go to grad school, but I don't know. It doesn't need to be now. I can go whenever I feel like it. I don't know. I don't have any pressure to do it anytime soon or to get a full-time job anytime soon. I'm always looking, I guess, for those opportunities, but haven't decided on anything. The job I'm working, I start in a couple days. I'll be there for 6 months, so it'll be through July or August, and then maybe I'll work a fall job after that, or I'll look into grad school. I'm not really sure yet.
As someone who only did about 2 years of fieldwork, I wish I had done more before coming to grad school. It's really fun. It can be really, really fun. And parts of it are hard, but parts of it are really great. And you really do learn a lot. And I think each job you do, even if you do kind of similar things, you kind of pick up new skills and think about things in different ways, which can also be really helpful for figuring out like what you actually want to do if you want to go to grad school at all. Kind of like I said before, like I did a pretty big academic focus pivot because of the field jobs that I did coming out of undergrad and then coming to grad school. That's kind of how I landed where I am now. So I found that to be really kind of informative change. And I strongly encourage people to take some time to try stuff out and see what they like doing.
When I first started, I definitely thought I was going to go right into grad school. And then I realized, like, when I started applying to zoos, is that your academics can only bring you so far. And so I tried looking for hands-on experience. And I've always told people, like, I'm not going to spend all of the money on grad school when they're looking for experience and then not get experience in the time I could be using it. So will I go to grad school? Maybe someday, but right now I'm doing what I love, and I still get to learn every day because I am an educator. So I get the extra added bonus of getting to learn more about the animals that I'm bringing along and spreading that information around. So I feel like that knowledge itch is being scratched right now. So it's all personal preference, really.
I kind of can jump off to what Caitlin was saying. I think just getting as much varied experiences as possible helped me a lot. Like, I think doing stuff with rehab, doing research type things, field work, trying out all of those different things really helped me in solidifying my decision in doing what I wanted to do. And I think, like everyone else was saying, is there's no timeline. Like, you don't have to go and do this right after you're done with undergrad. Like, there's no, whatever next steps have been kind of ingrained in being a for sure next step do not have to be your next steps. Like, your next steps can be whatever you want your next steps to be.
Yeah, I think Steph hit the nail on the head there. Whatever you want it to be is what it's going to be and what it should be. I get asked time and time again, are you going to grad school? And the simple answer is, I don't know. I love my job right now. Maybe one day, but I'm in no rush to get there. Nothing's forcing me to do it. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then I've at least spent my mid-20s doing what I love. So I can't be sad about that.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And then something just like talking about like getting experience, target this at Candace and Brian a bit more, is a lot of people I found have talked to me about either watching banding, gaining experience banding. And I know Candace, you were talking about briefly like how you got experience with Black Swamp. So how do you get your foot in the door and start getting that experience with like banding in particular?
Unfortunately, it's a lot of volunteering. You kind of have to volunteer either with a professor like Chris Tonra, someone that runs a small station near campus, even though he only takes so many people to help him. To really get that experience, you really need to spend a lot of time there to know what you're doing. And then, yeah, Black Swamp, I started volunteering at, I think it was my junior year. It's about a 2.5 hour drive up there. It's on Lake Erie near just east of Toledo. And I would go up on the weekends. I'd wake up at like 4 a.m. on Saturday mornings during the year. And I'd go up there to volunteer for, 6 hours or whatever. And then I'd drive back that day. And it was really exhausting. And I really shouldn't have done that probably. But without that experience, I ended up working at Cape May Bird Observatory that fall as their banding technician. So if I hadn't volunteered at Black Swamp that spring, then I wouldn't have been able to work at Cape May or get any of the other jobs I got after that. I don't know of many other stations around Columbus really besides, or even Ohio, besides there's Shaker Lakes up in Cleveland and there's Black Swamp. But yeah, just I guess volunteering with professors or nonprofits like that are just the best chance you have to get into banding, other than taking a field job maybe that would give you that first experience if they're willing to hire you and teach you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Candace said. Like, banding is kind of a tricky one like that. A lot of field jobs that get posted on these job boards, like for some reason expect a lot of banding, like for good reason. They expect people to have some banding experience, but not a lot of them kind of offer people that foot in the door opportunity. I can think of a couple that do. I took a field job with Klamath Bird Observatory in Central Oregon that was sort of geared as a intro to songbird banding internship kind of thing. And then Point Blue Conservation Science has a longer term one that's also kind of an introductory one, but those are few and far between. I think for a lot of people, kind of your best bet, like Candace said, is find people near you who are doing stuff, whether it's local bird observatories or people doing research. Sometimes grad students need help in the field too, and they might have the time in their field schedule to help kind of train you and get you on your feet. It's one of those things where unfortunately it's just like a matter of like putting as many, feelers out there as you can to try and find something that works out, which is tough. But we do have the station on campus here, so you can send Chris an email. Maybe we can work something out.
Yeah, and to follow on that from an organizational standpoint, a lot of Audubon agencies, etc., we do banding at our centers. We just don't publicize it because we don't want crowds and crowds and crowds of people coming to see it without us being able to monitor it. So if you know a Audubon or another conservation agency and they do anything with birds, it's worth shooting an email out. Just simply say, do you do banding? If you do, where can I volunteer? Because from Connecticut Audubon standpoint, we do banding currently at 4 of our centers, and it's not advertised anywhere. They do maybe 1 or 2, saw what owl banding, people come that night, or they do a couple other weekly things, but it's not advertised much. So shoot that email out. What's the worst they're going to say? No, we don't do it, but they may give you someone else who does do it.
Awesome, sweet. And then Steph, a question kind of targeted at you for pre-vet people. Similar to how like banding, hard to get your foot in the door. I think a big thing that vet school everyone always talks about is getting that hands-on experience can be so hard, especially just like getting away in that like you're not just shadowing. So what kind of tips would you have for that? You might have kind of covered a bit already, but just.
Yeah, I do think that not all of it has to be vet experience. And I think that's something that's super important. Like I was talking about before, like specimen prep was a lot of my experience. And sometimes that could be something that sets you apart from everyone who has worked in small animal general practice. So I think that's something to consider, that every single experience is valuable experience and doesn't necessarily have to be clinical experience. But if you are looking for that foot in the door for clinics, I do think sometimes that starting with shadowing can help. One example I have is I knew nothing about horses, didn't have any equine experience, and shadowed at an equine hospital. And I sort of asked them the same question that you just posed, Cassidy. And I was just asking, how do I get more equine experience? I don't really know how to handle horses. I have no experience with them. And they said that, consistently shadowing once a week or so, by the time you're comfortable, they'll let you start doing more. And I think that's a lot of ways too, without directly getting a job at the clinic is another way.
Perfect, thank you. And then I'll open it up to questions again if anyone has anything that came to mind while they were talking. Or... All right. I can also send out your guys' contact information so that people can like ask you guys anything if they have more specific like one-on-one questions. But let's see, it's been about 40 minutes. That's a good amount of time. So thank you guys so much again for coming out. This was absolutely awesome. Fantastic advice. You guys did great. It's so good to see all of you.
Cass, let me give one more suggestion to everyone.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you choose to do in life, whether it's a vet, a guide, a field tech, etc., the most important thing you can be is passionate. And as long as you're passionate about what you do and that you love it, people are going to see that and they're going to support you. But the other thing you need to remember is that you need to make sure you are personable to people. Because if you're passionate, but then turn a cold shoulder or aren't willing to take the time to help those who may be interested or may not fully understand, then you're not going to make that difference that I know every single one of us on here wants to make. So that's my last parting piece of advice, is to be passionate, but to be personable. And, the Ohio State Ornithology Club community, it's been 4 years now since I've gone, and I still talk to my friends in this community every day. So use the club as best as you can. And every single one of us, alumni, current members, will all help each other because we're all passionate.
That's awesome. That is exactly, yeah. It's just, I love being able to have you guys come back and talk at a meeting like this because yeah, just the community we've been able to form within the club. I'm so excited to see like how much the club is growing and all this stuff and continuing to build this community. So it's awesome. I love getting to see it together. But unless anyone else has any other like closing remarks they want to say. Anna, do you have something? I just saw your hand.
Yeah, I actually have a question. When you were talking about passion, Matt, made me think about the fact that I've got several interviews coming up for field jobs. I know you mentioned passion, and are there any other traits or things that I can kind of communicate in addition to like my qualifications, like teamwork or anything like that, that really stand out?
Yeah, something I always say to people, be passionate, but, and I say this to everyone I take out, beginners or people who want to learn how to guide. The other important thing, especially with interview or something else, is to be humble. Don't try to act like you know everything. Admit if you don't know something, and just be clear that you want to learn, that you're willing to put the time in and the effort in to become, to get better. No one knows everything. I think that's the number one step, and Tyler would confirm that too. But the number one step I've learned as I've learned more and more, and I think other people agree, is that we don't know everything. And that's okay to admit that. It's okay to say, I don't know. And I think, trying to pull out an answer just that you think that they're going to want to hear is not going to be, substantial or helpful to the end goal. Being honest, being truthful, being humble, and, showing that passion. I mean, Anna, you know me, other people don't as well, but I can talk forever about birds, forever and ever. I can go and go and go and go and go and never stop. And people love that passion. And that's, as long as you show it yourself, you're going to really make that difference. And I think you're really going to leave a mark on them. Because if you're, monotone, droning, answering, but if you hand gestures like I'm doing, or, showing that passion, but also, again, that willingness to learn and willingness to say, I don't know, or I was wrong, that would be a huge factor in getting that foot in the door.
And not contradict. Hi, it's Tyler. Not contradicting what Matt said, but just adding to it and clarifying, making sure that you're still confident in your abilities.
Yes.
Don't get humble to the point where they might think you don't know that you don't know what you're talking about. Make sure they know you know what you're talking about. But I guess the point would be, let them know that you know what you do. But if they try to correct you, you don't
argue it
anymore. Yeah, I just wanted to specify, you still want to make sure they know that you know what you're talking about. Make sure, if you're going in for a field tech job, the one season that I did, they told me the reason that I got the job on, compared to the other people, was because they asked me how confident I was in the visuals and the audio of the birds in our area. And I told them that, I just bluntly told them, there's, of the target species list that I was given, there was not a single bird on there I didn't feel that I could identify by call. And they said that right there, they said that they trusted that I knew what that I knew I was saying there. So just make sure that you don't sell your skills short. I know you're a sharp birder, and make sure that they know that too.
Right. Be honest. Be honest. But if they were to, he's right. If they give you a list of 10 birds and said, how many of these could you identify? Say the truth. Be exact. Say, I could do 7 for sure, 2 maybe-ish, 1 I couldn't tell you the top of my head. I mean, that's what they want to hear, because other people might guess or might say nothing. Oh, hello, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
No, I was listening to Tyler, Matt in the other room. That's for real. Point count jobs, if they're like in the interview, how many of these birds do you think you could identify? I'd be like, all of them, because you can. It's not wrong to say that.
Right. It's not wrong.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I just landed a job, and they said what set you apart from the other candidates is that you had good vibes. So sometimes it can be arbitrary, but just smile. Remember to smile.
Yeah, I'd say a big thing that I've noticed as I'm doing vet school interviews, that Steph can probably second this, is so many people, especially with pre-vet, I think it's kind of a stereotype, but just a lot of animal jobs in particular, is I'm working with animals because I like animals, and ooh, people are gross. People annoy me. And every vet school, when I've been doing Zoom calls about what they're looking for, they're always saying your interpersonal skills are huge, because every day you're interacting with other people in your clinic, with other professionals in the field, with the owners, with just anyone that you're in contact with. So I think just interpersonal skills are something huge to sell about yourself.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, sorry, Matt, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to change the topic. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna second Cassie and say that interpersonal skills are really so important. I'm in vet school and I have a whole class on professional skills, and it's all about talking with the client. And I would say it's very rare to have a job that you have no interaction with a single other person. And even if you have just one coworker, there's still an interpersonal connection that you have to make, develop, work with, live with every day, all day. So I think that that's hugely important. That I know we're all, I'm sure, I assume we're all animal people, and maybe that is part of the reason why I chose to be a veterinarian and not a human doctor. But I would still say that the interpersonal skills shouldn't be left behind just because animals are the main focus.
Okay, I'm gonna piggyback real quick. I'm so sorry. But before I got my job, I was volunteering there, and most of my day would be to go out and like make sure the animals had fresh food and fresh water and to clean all of their enclosures and everything. And I went on a day that rarely people showed up, but when people would show up and walk in our wildlife garden, I would like jump on the opportunity to talk to them. And like you might go, because I went in, I was like, I don't like people, I don't like socializing. But with everything going on, I was like, I love these animals so much, and I want these people to know how great this crow that I'm taking care of is. I want them to know that he was kept illegally as a pet, and this is why you shouldn't keep them illegally as a pet. Or, hey, this crow's 2 years older than me. Isn't that crazy, the longevity of these birds? You know, so I was just like jumping at the opportunity to get to know people and to share my passion with them.
And two things, but piggybacking off of what Caitlin said, the best compliment I've ever gotten as a guide is, and it can be applied to anything, is that I'm excited every single time I see a bird. My client said, I never know if it's your first time, your 100th time, or 1,000th time seeing a species, because you're always just as excited. And that excitement can affect birders, but it can also affect those who are really, look at you like you're crazy for being a bird lover. But they see it time and time again, and it kind of sticks with them. It kind of grows with them. They kind of gain an appreciation for what you do and what you love. And that starts with the family, and it goes out to friends and to strangers. And I think that's very important. The other thing, Anna and others, the world that we live in, like Tyler and I said, don't sell yourself short. The world we live in, Candace knows it, Caitlin knows it, Steph, Cassie, the world can be sexist. And I'll tell you right now, we don't give a shit. Like, I don't care what your skills are or what your gender is, whatever. As long as you're good and passionate, then you're going to get it. And if someone tries to sell you short because of that, oh, hell no. No. Call them out. You tell them the truth, because damn it, everyone in here, that's what you had, you be that way. Like, some of the best birders I know, she's not going to admit it, Candace is one of them, have gone through this, have faced this. And, it's bullshit. So, call it out when it happens. Don't let it, it's gotten me blocked on Facebook for calling it out. And I'll take that badge to the end of the day, because someone couldn't handle it, And if, this community will support you with that. They'll back you up. We do mobilize on internet sometimes. We can back you up if the person's online. Just putting that out there.
And I would say that's a big thing for people interested in grad school too, especially with some of the older school professors, that being a woman, sometimes you can get a little bit of pushback with that. And I was even told once by a professor that he was surprised I was considering grad school because I was a woman. And I was like, oh, okay. But it's a really real thing and something to be aware of. And kind of like Matt said, I would say this is a community where that is not tolerated. And if you need backing, hit any of us up. I think we're going to be there for you.
No, we'll be there. I think every single one of us will be there.
And if that's
Ohio
a question,
State Ornithology Club's Ohio State Ornithology Club's a cult. It's not a club. It's a cult.
I just wanted to add to what Steph was saying. If someone is asking you those kinds of questions or making those kinds of comments in like an interview, it's probably not somebody you want to work for anyways.
Yeah, interviews are two ways. Don't forget that.
That's a very true statement.
You guys finally admit it's a cult.
Well, come on.
I was on a boat I was on the Catarrus Pelagic, and someone was like, "Oh, you're wearing OSU. You're from the bird cult." Yeah, Anna can attest to that.
Famous or
That was
infamous?
a
Cult, it's a
interesting
family. We know we all support each other. I think that's the bottom line. We want nothing more. Us alumni, I speak for all of us, I would hope, want nothing more than to see every single member of the club succeed in one way or another. Like, you know, and we'll do what we can do. We have connections. All of us have connections everywhere. Well, just about everywhere. And we are not shy in using them. That's part of why Cassidy put this panel together. I mean, you know, I look back at the club again 4 years ago and it was 4 or 5 people. And that, you know, we have, what, 16 of us on the screen right now. It's 4 times as many. And the fact that, you know, 4 of the founders are sitting on this call right now, I would say, because Caitlin, I do consider you as one of the founding members. You know, it says a lot about how this club sticks together. And you know, we do talk. The alumni all talk. You know, we get updates how the club's going. What can we do to help? I mean, Cassidy gets texts from me every so often. How's the club? What's going on? Can I do anything to help? And that offer extends to anyone. You know, how can we help?
You guys are the best. You're just all the best.
Well, all of us except for Tyler.
I mean, I guess he gets to talk about photo stuff at some point. He gets enough.
Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be fine.
Whatever.
Don't unmute yourself. Stay muted.
All right. Thank you guys so much. If anyone has any last comments, anything, if not, I'll let people go. But thank you guys so much, everyone who came to join the panel and everyone who came to just listen in. I'll have this recorded as well for anyone else who isn't here, if you guys want to go back, see anything. But thank you guys so much for coming. Can't wait to see you guys in person in a couple weeks, and all of you alumni. I better see you guys at some point soon too.
McGee Marsh. You guys want to meet us? Come to McGee Marsh for the festival. We'll be there. Most of us. Steph, you gonna be there? Girl.
I will not be there. I will be in school.
Okay, go see Steph. You gotta go to Arizona. Tough luck.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my sister graduates from high school like the week before the biggest week. And so I'm flying home for that. And so I cannot fly both weekends. I cannot afford.
I guess. All right, I guess. All right. Thank you guys so much. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.